Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Tyler, and today I'm bringing you guys What If Miguel Died. I figured why not follow up with another Miguel What If, because those seem to do pretty well on my channel, and this What If is a pretty short one, as this one is covering basically from the beginning of Season 3 to the end of Season 3, since that's all we can really cover, since all the show really has is 3 seasons. Obviously, when Season 4 rolls around, I'll probably be doing some remasters on some of these What Ifs, if not, then adding some additional parts to these What Ifs. So this one is probably not going to be an exception, so be on the lookout for part 2. If you guys want more Cobra Kai related videos, then be sure to go and suggest me some down in the comment sections, and if you guys want to go and check out some videos of my own or more Cobra Kai videos that I have, then go and check out the playlist that I have, which is Cobra Kai / Karate Kid stuff. Now with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the video, and I hope you guys do enjoy.
You was on some op shit. I was cruising down a nigga block with a chopstick. Rockstar nigga. Nah, I need a rock bitch. You want beef? Nah, bitch, he's not squash bitch.
We start our story off in Season 3, Episode 1. Currently, Miguel is fighting for his life, and we see him fighting that one random goon in his dream, symbolizing he's fighting to get back up and fighting for his life at the moment. However, in this timeline, things begin to change once Miguel quickly falls to the opponent, and after falling is then striked to the stomach on the ground. This symbolizes Miguel losing the battle and lost the battle to fighting for his life. And in this timeline, Miguel doesn't wake up. This means Episode 1 ends on a dark note with Miguel succumbing to his injuries and never waking up again. We know the first person to visit Miguel while awake was Carmen, so we can assume she would be the first one to visit him like in canon, but she wouldn't see her son awake. Rather, she tries to step in the same room as Miguel, but the doctors back her away, as they would then tell her about what his current condition is, and Carmen would then begin to break down, and we would then transition into Johnny and Daniel in the car, trying to team up to try and figure out where Robbie is. In general, the rest of Episode 2 is very similar to in canon. You know, we have the main plot lines, Kreese helping out Tori with her landlord, Daniel and Johnny teaming up to find Robbie, and like in canon, Amanda would text Daniel about what had happened with Miguel. However, in this timeline, it's not good news, it's bad news, and when Daniel breaks this to Johnny, Johnny is at a loss for words, and honestly doesn't even know how to process this. Miguel is actually gone? At that point, we see the random guy steal the van, and Daniel would say how they have to go, and rather than Johnny stealing the car and driving away, it would be Daniel last second trying to go away, but Johnny at the last second before Daniel drives away gets in the car, and now Johnny and Daniel are put in the same situation as in canon, but Johnny is at an all-time low. An even lower low, if you may will, than his canon self. At that point, we would see Johnny trying to interrogate this guy, but he would be nearly killing him even worse than in canon. Like, his face is pretty beat up, and Daniel has to pull him away, and Daniel is now fighting a blinding, raging Johnny, who's essentially just attacking aggressively, and is just kind of really frustrated and punching air right now because he's just taking out all of his negative emotions about what had happened to Miguel in this situation, which allows Daniel to basically hit him with more blows than Johnny thinks, and Johnny would be on the ground. It's not that Daniel was stronger than Johnny, it's just that Johnny's blinding rage got the better of him. Now, after this moment, and after realizing what he had done, he would rather apologize to Daniel than get into a big argument with him, which would lead into the two of them separating. And he would proceed to break down, because now the thing is that we have to take into account Miguel's death in this situation, unlike in canon where Johnny was just being a spurg, but now Johnny kind of has a justification for this. Johnny's student is dead, and Daniel takes this into account, which means he's not going to be like, well, Robbie had a little bit of too much of you in him, you know, not being an asshole really, but rather just trying to calm Johnny down and saying that he needs to follow his own advice and the advice that he was giving Miguel to help him move forward. Daniel would say how Johnny's the biggest fighter he knows and he's gonna quit. He can't do that. He's better than that. He can't do that to Miguel. Miguel wouldn't want that, and instead of this scene breaking them apart, we would actually have this scene allowing them to actually pick up the pieces and Johnny apologizing for what he'd done, and they're actually still working together now. Daniel puts his hand out for Johnny to get up. Johnny grabs Daniel's hand and gets back up and says, "Thanks for the pep talk, LaRusso." At that point, we would then get a call, which is from Danny's phone, about Robbie, which is Robbie's mom, and Johnny and Daniel would proceed on to go there. Now, I think Daniel is definitely more than smart enough to not tell Johnny about his plan, because Johnny's obviously going to be going against it, and Johnny is not in the right mental state, so Daniel is just going to keep his plan on the low, which is to basically turn in Robbie so his sentence is lighter. But we have to understand here that when Daniel snitches on Robbie isn't just going to be going to juvie for the same amount of time as he did in Cannon. No, he committed a murder, meaning more than likely the charges are much more significant, and he's probably going to be in a place like prison rather than actual juvie. Johnny would be mad at Daniel, and this clearly shows to Robbie that Johnny wasn't aware of the plan or whatever, and Robbie basically says for Daniel to not come and visit him. I think after this, Johnny would be mad at Daniel, and at that point he would dip off, and now the two are no longer working with each other. Now, I think the main people who would be impacted by Miguel's death are definitely people like Hawk, Tori, Sam, Dimitri. All those people would have felt a loss that day, because for Cobra Kai, it was a comrade, and for Miyagi-Do, it was a friend. Miguel was friends with both sides, and because of that, both sides are grieving. And without Miguel here, I think Hawk's conflict isn't going to be as existent anymore, because now, if anything, he has more of a reason to try and get revenge on Miyagi-Do because they killed his friend. And I think mainly he would want to get revenge on Sam, so I think during the carnival fight we could have maybe Hawk pressing onto Sam, and then Sam retreating and running away, then Dimitri getting jumped by someone else, and then Hawk going in to snap his arm. I don't know, I definitely think Hawk and Tori would be the two characters who are now just kind of walling and just being bloodlusted 24/7, because, again, Miguel died, and that was someone very important to the both of them. For Tori, that was her boyfriend, and for Hawk, that was like his best friend. Now, I think Johnny here, since now that Miguel is dead, he needs to try and fix up his life, which would then start with Robbie. Instead of Miguel being alive and Johnny going to visit him, it would actually be Johnny visiting Robbie. Now, what's funny about this is that I've unironically made this scenario, and in this scenario, I basically said because of Johnny visiting Robbie and basically talking to him, and I think in this scenario, I think the talk would definitely be way more impactful, especially when considering that Johnny's at an all-time low, and he's basically telling himself to never give up, and now he's probably going to be telling his son that very same thing. And I explained in my What If Johnny Visited Robbie video that because of Johnny talking to Robbie before Kreese gets to him, this means he would never fall to Kreese or really succumb to Kreese's manipulation. And rather, once Robbie gets out, Johnny is basically going to be awaiting him and is going to be helping him out however he can and whenever he can. I think the sentence is going to be longer than in canon, right? So I'm going to say here, instead of him getting out in season 3, he's not necessarily going to be getting out just yet. Rather, Robbie's just going to be still holding out in prison and isn't going to be using the Miyagi-Do style, but rather kind of Johnny style. You know, striking first, striking hard, but he is going to be showing mercy sometimes. And we see this where instead of seeing Sean, since, you know, he's not in juvie, so Robbie wouldn't see Sean, Robbie is probably going to have a tougher time dealing with these prisoners rather than these kids in juvie. But I think Robbie is going to be using Johnny's philosophy and basically beating them up but showing mercy, which would allow him to gain respect amongst the inmates, and this means Robbie isn't going to be messed around with or bullied around anymore. And obviously prisoners aren't going to be having time to like send emails or any of that stuff, so I don't think that's going to be happening, and rather Sam is just going to be trying to reach Robbie, but Robbie really can't text back or really see these messages. Speaking of Sam, Sam is probably going to be hurting way more and is probably not going to be going to school until a little bit even later than her canon self, considering the fact that Miguel's dead and she feels so guilty about this whole situation, not to mention her Tori PTSD. Johnny, I think, would still be trying to make Eagle Fang and would go around the school to try and get more students, and he would collect Ass-Face, Bert, and all the other rejects in Cobra Kai that basically got dismissed by Kreese. Johnny would still try and convince the old Cobra Kai to join him as well, but in this timeline it's going to be the same, and Kreese would arrive at Johnny and Eagle Fang and would basically tell Johnny to join Cobra Kai, and this is going to be his last chance, and Johnny would say how he's not going to join and he better get out of here. And also, instead of mentioning Miguel being in a coma, he would mention Miguel's death, which would get Johnny definitely started and would get him in a fighting position. Kreese would then turn down this fight, saying how he doesn't want to fight Johnny, and at that point Johnny would say, then get lost. We move move on to the appeal of the All Valley ban, which I think is going to go differently. You guys may be wondering, well, Miguel isn't alive, so who's going to convince the All Valley? And in this timeline, it will be this new grown Johnny. You see, Johnny isn't going to be immature and basically just kind of fighting with Kreese and Daniel. No, this Johnny has been going through a character arc, and he is definitely going to take the situation a lot more serious and isn't going to just resort to try and expose Kreese or anything like that, but rather explain how he was the teacher of the student who died. But karate is really the only reason he's able to keep on going right now. He's doing it for his student, or the student that he basically saw as his own son. His son may have been the reason why his student died, but because of karate, Johnny was able to not only try and get his son back on the right path, it's also the very reason he still keeps on moving forward with his life and continuing to live on. Sam would thank Johnny for what he did, and Daniel would even thank Johnny as well. And at that point, Johnny would go on about his day. Miguel and Sam would never get together because, you know, Miguel's kind of dead. And not to mention, Robbie wouldn't even be around to see this. And not to mention, since Robbie isn't joining Cobra Kai, this would mean that Hawk is also going to be staying at Cobra Kai, and it's just more reason for Hawk to stay down this dark path. Tori would be embracing her darker side even more than ever, considering the fact that, again, her boyfriend died, and her and Miguel wouldn't have that talk, so Miguel isn't going to call her crazy or anything, or at least Tori isn't going to interpret it as that. I mean, how's she going to talk to a dead guy? Now, since Carmen and Johnny are never really going to get together, and Carmen wants absolutely nothing to do with Johnny, this would lead into Johnny and Allie actually getting together, and Johnny would kiss Allie not only before they get to the party, but also after the party. And in this timeline, we would get Sam trying to personally find Mitch and Bert and all the Eagle Fang people and invite them to the Christmas party, which would lead into Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do trying to form an alliance. Cobra Kai crashes the party. Now, in this fight, I definitely think it's going to be a major L for Miyagi-Fang, since no Miguel is around, or really any strong fighters other than Sam, who's going to be fighting Tori and already has PTSD against her. So Tori and Sam are going to be fighting, which means Hawk and the others are just going to be slamming everyone else. Dimitri would get in the position where his arm is about to be broken, and in this timeline, Hawk runs over and breaks his arm yet again. At that point, Hawk and the other Cobra Kai students would then head over to where Tori is to try and help her out against Sam, and Sam would knock out most of the fodder up until it's just Hawk and Tori. The two are about to charge at Sam, while Sam is going to charge in fearlessly. However, Daniel then arrives onto the scene, and Daniel would then proceed to scare Tori along with the rest of the Cobra Kai crew off away. When Johnny arrives home, he would get a call from Daniel about the whole situation, and this leads into Johnny storming off into the Cobra Kai dojo, where it's just Kreese by himself, and the two would then begin to 1v1. However, before anything further escalates, I think Daniel would arrive earlier as well, since, again, he called Johnny, and not to mention he would have time to drive over while Johnny would also be driving over, so the two would be working together against Kreese in this timeline. Johnny and Danny would be getting ready to finish Kreese off, but at that point, not only Sam arrives, but also Tori and Hawk. At that point, Kreese would then get Tori and Hawk on his side, and at that point, they would then have that same old settle for the All Valley, and if they lose, Cobra Kai is disbanded. Season 3 then wraps up with Johnny and Daniel combining dojos, and we would even get a call from Robbie's mom that Robbie is going to be getting released in about a week. And that is where we are going to be leaving our story off for right now. If you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to give this video a like and a thumbs up, along with subscribing if you are new to the channel, and hitting the bell icon that we are notified and updated every time I upload. My name is Tyler, and be sure to go and follow me on Twitter as well, and subscribe to Endless Requiem, who made my intro, link in the description. Thank you guys for watching once again. My name is Tyler, and I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace.